I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be filmed by the Council and broadcast live on the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the chamber, it's likely that the cameras will capture your image. By your presence, you are deemed to consent to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. If you address the committee, your contribution will be recorded and broadcast, unless this is during a period when the meeting is in private session, as permitted by the access to information provisions. As the chairman of the meeting, I can, at my discretion, terminate or suspend filming, if in my opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceedings of the meeting, or if I consider that continued filming might infringe the rights of any individual or breach any statutory provision. Right, as I say, welcome, and particularly welcome to Georgia, who's here to see how we do things. Welcome. For the purpose of the three gentlemen at this end, you may remove your jackets.
I was just following the chairman.
Right, the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I've had three apologies, Councillors Bater, Davis and Tamara. Are there any other apologies? There being no other, that's fine. Agenda item 2 is to approve as an accurate record the minutes of the meeting of the Finance and General Purposes Committee held on the 20th of March of this year. I just have one slight correction to make, and that is at paragraph 8723, paragraph C. It talks about a number of projects have been delivered. This is under the Ashton School and Ashton Middle School. A number of projects have been delivered which have helped to transform the school. It should be both schools. Okay? Both schools.
You're going to amend the written record.
Okay, I'll do that now then. Thank you. Are there any other comments? No? Can I sign the papers then as a correct record? Aye. Okay, fine, thank you. Right, declarations of interest. If any members have an interest to declare, they can either do so now or at the time when they feel that there is an item on the agenda to which they should respond. Are there any declarations at this juncture? Nope. Thank you very much. Right, item 4 is the financial monitoring report. It's on page 3, and you can also see the internal audit report, which is sent out separately. So I assume this is you, Lisa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hollick. So you've all received the financial monitoring report and the corresponding appendices. I did send a second version or appendix 2 out. Hopefully you've all received that, just with an amendment to some figures that are transposed incorrectly. So it's just to provide the revenue budget control report for the financial year ending the 31st of March. So as you can see in the detail of the report, and as discussed actually earlier, we spoke about the underspends. So with all of the figures included, we did actually have a £51,291 underspend if you take account of all of the contributions that we did to reserve that we brought to earlier committees, which was really good for that financial year with all of its different challenges. And then we've also provided the detail of the council's earmarked reserves as at year end. So that's just a more detailed list of all of our current reserves and what the balances were as at the 31st of March. And then included in the report, it's just an update on our investments with the various banks that Paul did discuss with you or mention earlier. So limited amounts in our NatWest current and reserves accounts. And then we have the two CCLA deposit accounts. One of them is specifically has the 3G pitch fund that we receive from Central Bedfordshire Council, that we leave in that fund until we need to draw down on it to do any work to the 3G pitches. And then the second deposit account is where we tend to put all of our money. Paul and I review this quite regularly, at least twice a month, what we've got coming out of the current account, what we need to put in there so that we can put as much as possible into the deposit account to get as much interest as we can. As you can see, last month we received £8,247.66 interest, which is nice. Any questions?
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Not a question really, more than as we always tend to say, thank you Lisa for all your hard work and for everything that you do to make things happen and to make the figures add up. I think nobody expected us to have that underspend that you've reported, and I think it's a testament to the hard work of all of the officers of the council and to the councillors sat around the table and the previous councillors for managing the council so well. And I just wanted to put that on record, particularly as, you know, as we do have a whole new group of us sat around the table. Some of you weren't involved in those conversations, and it's only right, I think, to recognise the councillors that are no longer on the council for their hard work as well as the officers' work.
Thank you. I'd say that I think the figures do add up naturally rather than making the figures add up. Slight distinction. Are there any other comments at all? I mean, this is an opportunity. You'll appreciate from the briefing and from sitting on the other committees that this is very much a key committee given the financial responsibilities that it does have. We do get the regular audit reports and so on, and these reports are quite detailed. It is an opportunity, particularly if you don't sit on one of the other committees, to raise questions on any expenditure that comes through the other committees. Usually if the committee does want to spend a certain amount of money, it does come to finance and general purposes, but as those of you who are on grounds and environment, there is a matter which will be going direct to full council on what was called a pedestrian cleaner. I did wonder what that was when I first read it, but it is a perfectly acceptable machine. So, we're asked to note, but if there are any further questions? No? Well, can we therefore, under the action recommended, 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3, are members happy to note the information that we have before us? Right, thank you. All right. Yes, there's the audit report as well. That's got to come out. Have you got that separately? Because it saves me going around there. Yes, the other aspect was the audit report, which sets out what's been done, and members will be pleased to know that pretty well every time when there is a comment, the comment usually reads, "There are no matters arising that a formal comment or recommendation is required." So that shows how well the council is run. So are there any questions then on the audit report? Is there anything you particularly want to say about it?
Thank you, Chairman. So, yeah, we're happy. Luckily, as always, the conclusions are all that they're very pleased with everything that they've checked at the last visit and at the previous two visits. They've added a conclusion at the bottom of the page 8, regarding the asset register provided by the accountants is sufficient to provide the information required for completion. However, in our discussions in the internal auditors discussion with myself and Paul, we have agreed going forward that it would be beneficial for the council to develop its own asset register. We do hold our own asset register. However, the accountant does come in and sort of manipulate it and change it to suit the production of the financial statement. So as Paul mentioned earlier, we are going to look at the way that we can change that. We're getting an upgrade on our financial system currently, and I'll be having some training on that really shortly about it will produce it itself, the software, as long as we put the correct information in. So that will really help us going forward and make sure that all the information is a lot easier to read and more manageable.
Yes, thank you. So are there any comments then on the internal audit report? Good, well, we certainly accept that, and thank you for conducting matters in such a way where there are no matters arising that require any further consideration. Right, agenda item 5, earmarked reserves. This is an opportunity to see what's in each reserve. You'll see that we do have quite a few reserves. At the last budget round, we did ask officers to look very carefully at how much we did have in the reserves, and I'm sure we'll possibly be doing that again next time round. There are a number of actions that are recommended here, approving the release of reserves, approving the expenditure for the tree reserved, approve an allocated balance, and to approve an underspend for downside. Would you like to introduce this?
Yes, thank you. So, as Councillor Hollick has advised, this is kind of a tidying up reserve report that we'd like to ask members to allocate or give permission to spend from the reserves that we have allocated previously. So, I've given you details on the reserves that were agreed at the last council with the 120,543 underspends, and now we're asking members to approve the release of those reserves, as although we requested to create the reserves, we didn't actually ask officially to spend from them. So it's just a tidying up wording, so hopefully you will approve those. And then the second part was that John, our head of grounds and environmental services, is working on his tree works. He's had a tree safety report recently where he's been advised on what works recommendations need to be done over the next 12 months and the priorities for those. So we're asking the members to approve the expenditure for the whole of the tree reserve for those specific works. And then we move on to the approval of the unallocated balance of the £1,000 from the Meadway Capital Fund. As you will see from the report and previous committees, the £500,000 capital receipt that we received last year was allocated through the committees for various projects, and it's just so happens to total up to 499,000. So we're just asking for that 1,000 to be allocated. We've said the new cemetery development. We know that cost is going to be a lot higher than the 75,000 that we've put aside, but every little helps. And then the last one is, again, there was the last approval for the downside roof works, the first round of roof works required, following various issues that were at downside. There was a slight underspend. So again, we're just asking for that underspend to be allocated to the new reserve set up for the second round of roof repairs that we're expecting in the next 2 to 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the details are there under 2.2. You can see some of the work that is being done, the varied work that we have to look at in this committee. The tree reserve, we have a considerable number of trees and they are examined reasonably regularly. And of course we have to have money aside to deal with them. It's not, trees aren't a cheap thing to deal with. I think if you want a tree done at home, I think the minimum is about £400 or £500 to have something done to it. So it isn't a cheap exercise. Meadway Capital Fund, that was from the sale of the allotment land. Those of you who came on the tour will have glean some of the detail of that. And the downside roof, we own that property, it's leased out at the moment, but we're responsible for the roof, and some more work is clearly need to be done on that. So have we any questions then, please? Yes, Councillor Henderson.
Sorry, could you just explain to me about the tree reserve one more time, please? Is that already accounted for in the reserve table? I couldn't see it above. Just thank you.
Yes, thanks, Councillor. So we have a specific tree reserve that it's been there for a number of years, and we do contribute it through the revenue budget annually, as well as having tree works in the revenue budget itself on the different rec grounds, town centre and cemetery areas. We require the reserve. It was set up for specific use for these additional health and safety requirements. So John, the head of Grounds and Environmental Services, brought a report probably over 3 years ago now, a 3-year programme of works. So he got permission at that committee to spend the whole reserve. So he hasn't done that this time round. So he's just asking for the 12 months on this occasion, which will just spend the reserve, and then probably do the same thing again, depending on what the requirements are.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, clearly when we get into the budget process again, we'll look at reserves in detail and what we need to do and what we have to do and what we want to do. Okay, are there any other comments? If not, can we approve the 4 matters together, or do you want me to take them separately?
Happy to go together.
Happy to go together. Are those in favour then? Approving. Thank you. Good. Right, item 6 is the investors in people. We have a silver award, which is something of which you should be very proud. Not all town councils would have such a thing, but I'm sure our town clerk, chief executive, will explain a little bit more about this.
Very few town councils have such a thing, especially at Silver. It is a really huge achievement that we've achieved Silver. So we have a accreditation every 3 years. The initial assessment over a year ago said we were kind of borderline to keep Silver, but they gave us a year to kind of prove that we were. So for the last 12 months, there's been an action plan which Kelly's been leading on, which has been quite involved. So we've done a number of things across the organisation. We've set up staff focus groups which meet quarterly. So that's a random slice of people from across the organisation who raise a set of issues, and then we respond to them and feedback. We've put in a monthly staff newsletter. We've got values for the organisation, and you should always see posters up around the building in terms of the value of the month that we're talking about. We're having quarterly all-staff meetings where we have 2 all-staff meetings every quarter that myself and the other managers will go to and meet with staff. So and we've got monthly wellbeing sessions as well. So the number of things we put in place, all of which are beneficial. So this isn't a tick box exercise for the sake of getting a certificate. Everything I've just said is actually benefiting how we relate to staff, how staff feel the organisation is. And IIP do a survey that we have no control over, where they just send it out to staff, and staff say exactly what they think about leadership and all those things. So out of the 9 criteria, we're silver on 8 of them, and we only need to be silver on 7 to qualify as silver. So we've done really well. They will come back now next January to have an interim review prior to an assessment 12 months after that. So they will keep us on our toes. We do pay a fee, but I think it's money well spent just for the challenge it brings in. Actually, are we managing staff? Do staff feel like they're being managed and led and communicated with? Some of those conversations aren't always easy, but they're really important conversations to have, especially because we're such a multi-site organisation. So actually trying to make staff who work at Creasy Park on a Saturday evening feel part of an organisation where a lot of us only work 9 to 5 in this building during the week is quite a challenge. We're working across 6 or 7 sites with people who do very varied jobs. So I'm really proud of it. I think it's a great achievement, and hopefully we'll carry on applying.
Thank you. I think there's a plaque outside on the wall, isn't there?
there's a bronze one outside, which is historic. So we have got a brand new silver IIP plaque. The plaque comes in a really posh box, and you open the box, and it has a pair of white gloves on top of the plaque to lift the plaque up.
You can imagine how much Paul liked that.
Thank you. I think I'd be true to say that our aim is to retain silver rather than going for gold, because I think gold would be a little bit beyond what can be expected of a town council. I think that's fair to say that. Councillor Alderman.
Could I ask, what would it actually take to get gold, and what kind of councils do attain gold that we could maybe learn from?
We haven't done a detailed piece of work on the answer to that question. I'm only aware of one town council that's got gold, and I've read their report, and I'm not quite sure how it happened, how they did that. There is a balance in these things between how much effort is appropriate to put into one thing and what you get for it, but happy to look at it. What I should also have said was the personnel subcommittee is due to meet in July, and they will have the detailed report that IOP have given us, which takes you through the 9 things and where we are at them. So I guess the next conversation will be for members to look at that and how you think we're doing against those 9 things. And we can certainly bring the gold criteria to the personnel subcommittee as well and have a think about what that jump might look like and if that would be helpful.
Jones.
Thank you. Just a huge congratulations to not only the staff and the team that do this. I do Investors and People at Work over the years, and it is incredibly hard to get, let alone maintain and retain it. So huge congratulations. And equally, the newsletter that comes out to the councillors now in the last 6 months, that's a huge improvement for us as councillors to receive that correspondence from you as well. We weren't getting that before, and it's the small things like knowing Georgia starting with us on the 3rd of July will appear in that newsletter. We know who our people are that are coming in, so when we're out and about, we can actually acknowledge the new faces that we see as well. So I think it's really important that newsletter continues as well, so that's really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 questions. One's kind of half been answered. I love that there are a set of values now that you're working towards, and I just wonder if you could tell us, and maybe I should know, what are those core values?
Everything that you would expect.
Sorry.
Paul's looking around for clues.
So the really embarrassing thing about this moment is, and my first all-staff meetings, I asked staff that question, and there was a slightly embarrassed silence, and now I can't remember all of them. So that's certainly respect, leadership have been the highlights recently. So they've been the ones up on the wall most recently. So I'm aware of the current. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for your support and help. Respect, communication, honesty and trust, teamwork and pride. So they're the result of much work. We do also now have an additional one around leadership. So the assessor wanted us to put together a leadership charter for the organisation. We resisted a bit going down a route of having a whole leadership charter because that seemed like another piece of work to go alongside those values, which I really like. So we have got one value which is around leadership that now sits alongside those that we're just about to roll out, and we did that through a couple of workshops with the management team to work out what we think those values should be.
Thank you. Sorry, my second question, and I think it's great that there's a set of values because it really is good to have something to focus towards personally as well as for the company, for the council, but just to have respect for others, communicate well. You said that out of the 9 criteria you reached silver in 8 of them. You may not know the answer, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but which was the one that didn't reach silver on?
Leadership.
Okay, thank you.
So I look forward to that discussion with the personnel subcommittee.
Are there any further comments? Councillor Atwell.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask, obviously, it's a great achievement here that we've got, Investors in People. Are we going to make sure we put something in the Talk of the Town magazine so we can get out? It's important that we try and raise, our successes until it's important. I think having put all the hard work into achieving this, we make sure we do like a small article or something that we can get out there to let people know about it. Yeah. Thank you.
No, well, I'll certainly add my congratulations, and it is an excellent achievement, and we work, as I say, to ensure we retain silver. We'll do a little bit of work to see what there is in respect of gold, but it is a fairly time-consuming, I think, to put together what needs to be done and so on, and we have to sort of literally balance whether we feel it is worth doing that. But having moved from bronze to silver, that's a step in the right direction, so that's excellent. Right, agenda item 8, important here, marketing communications, and we have recently employed a new marketing and communications personnel. So here you see all the hits that we have, and you can see how we're what progress we're making there. Who wants to introduce this? Paul?
That would be me. As we've said earlier, our marketing communications officer has been in post about 3 weeks and has drafted the report, which is similar to what used to be provided by the previous post holder. So social media stats are always difficult, and Facebook always change the rules and what they mean every 3 months. So the pluses and minuses are of some benefit, and they give you an idea. 10,000 is a very good number of followers for the town council. I think you've seen even the last few weeks, our Facebook and Instagram activity has risen again in terms of its volume and quality. So Rachel's role is really twofold. It's partly to put out corporate stuff and do it well, but it's also to support other services to put out their content and help them with what it looks like, what it consists of. I remain personally quite sceptical about the value of Twitter to the town council, but we'll keep on using it. I think Twitter's probably quite useful to you as councillors more than it is to us as staff in some ways. And Rachel is keen that we investigate video more, so we're about to redo our mobile phone contract for staff, and staff will be getting phones which are better equipped to do video and multimedia in different forms. So we will be looking for video clips of councillors doing interesting things for us to share with the general public. So do come expecting.
Not climbing out of trucks.
And we'll, at some point, we are going to have an internal TikTok competition, but I'm holding off that for a few months. But helpful to take any questions.
In the last council, we did have a chat about Talk of the Town and how often we actually produce that each year. It is an expensive item, and it also goes a little bit against our environmental credentials with the amount of paper and the printing and so on that we use. But I think we're aiming for sort of a brief one at the beginning of the year, which will give some idea of what's going on towards the early events, and then there's this 16-page one, large one in June. Then I think we have another one just before Christmas, which will obviously outline the Christmas activities that we have. So, communications. Is anyone going to communicate with me now? And Councillor Reardon.
Thank you for that summary of the social media activity. It's great that Rachel's started in post, and I think she's right about the video activity. You know, a lot of people now will look at videos and read the captions because they can't listen to them out loud. So I think it's a really good thing for us to up the ante on. And I think, you know, we're all supporting social media posts that you are sharing. And I'm really keen to just support that even further. And I think that's it. I think I did have a question, but I've kind of forgotten it. So I just think it's great. The social media content that I've seen put out has just been of such a good quality anyway, and it's really good to keep the local community informed of what's happening and make it look exciting, and it does. So I just wanted to comment and say that, really.
Thank you. There is at least one, if not more, notice boards in each of our wards. So if councillors sort of you look and see what's on it, and if you think there's something that's out of date, let us know. If you feel that we could use them in a slightly different way, then let's bring your ideas forward. And 5 says what's on window. That I assume is referring to the window in West Street, where we have videos and we have information again about what is on in terms of events and so on. Councillor Jones, then Councillor John Gurney.
Just on the notice boards across the ward, I've been putting in the In Bloom posters for In Bloom recently. Noticed that it's still early days, I appreciate that, but we've got the old photos of our old previous councillors in there, in some of them, so they need to come out and our new photos need to go in, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Gurney.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm certainly grateful for all the figures that are produced for the number of people who are looking at our Facebook and other social media. When I first became a councillor 4 years ago, the figures were obviously a lot lower. And also when you have consistent figures, we used to have kind of phrases like interest and things people are interested without actually knowing. And I think it also helps us because I do, and I know other councillors share everything that's on or as much as we can from the town council on our own social media, and then we can also say to residents, look, if you want to know what's going on, this is where you go, the website, the Facebook, and so on. And so we're always drawing attention to it. So that's helpful as well. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
So I just want to come back. Whilst I absolutely use social media and explore it and do it daily, we do have to remember there is quite a large proportion of our residents in Dunstable that still do not access Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So Talk of the Town is their only way of hearing and seeing from Dunstable Town Council. Gone are the days where Dunstable Gazette, the Herald and Post publicise everything that we ask them to publicise or in the format we would want them to be. So we do have to remember to publicise everything we get via other channels as well as those digital channels. It's really important. Don't let those people lose out, because we have got people that can't afford internet connections right this minute, and that's the one thing that is going in people's households is that digital capability. So please just bear that in mind when we're thinking about how we do things.
It's one of the some excellent articles sometimes in the Gazette. Not many people, I think, buy the Gazette, which is a great pity, which is why it has become Luton and Dunstable Gazette and short, small letters at the top. But it is a matter of, it's always a matter, whatever committee one sits on, it's always the hard to reach groups, and whether our new communications officer will have some other ideas. It's how we've got something else on the agenda, haven't we, about communicating with the public and possibly having surgeries and things, but that's slightly different. Councillor Reardon again.
Sorry, I just got 2 more points. The what's on window, which is brilliant, by the way. I love that that's, so sort of visual on West Street. But is it actually, it's free, right? Am I right in thinking it's free for companies, businesses to advertise on there? Thank you. And with regards to Talk of the Town, obviously we are, everybody's trying to be more sustainable and a bit more eco-friendly. I wonder if we might have an opt-out option for residents if they don't want to receive the paper version. It's something, I guess, that could be looked into maybe.
We can investigate. I suspect it would be difficult because we pay a company to deliver just to every door. So the process they would have to go through to not put it through some doors, I suspect they'd print just as many and then bin a few as they went round. So I think the benefit to the environment of that would be very minimal, unfortunately. We have gone down from what was 4 editions to 3 editions a year. I've got mixed feelings about that, to be honest, in terms of benefit. Yeah, it is a difficult one because, as we've all said, people do need that. A lot of people need the paper copy. And a lot of people on social media will use that in a way which they'd use social media differently. And it answers a lot of questions. So what do you do about accessibility? What do you do about people without the internet? that's the answer to those questions.
Any other comments? In that case, as far as this agenda item is concerned, we're asked to note, or at least it's for information, not to technically note. Right, agenda item 9, corporate plan development process, which you will appreciate is going to be started around about September time, but a little bit more detail, I'm sure, from our town clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so this is really for information, but obviously for your comment or suggestion. The development of the plan will be an iterative process. So the suggestion is to hold a member workshop on the Saturday, the 16th of September. It's very difficult to find an alternative date, so I think we'll probably have to do it on those who can attend can, and those who can't won't. I suspect that if we try and change the date, there'll always be some who can and some that can't in the way of these things. And we'll work up draft objectives with you. We'll give you lots of information before then. So some members have sent me suggestions already, and if you do have ideas specifically, do let me know now, because actually that gives us time to research and ask questions and compare what other people send in. I won't tell you which member has the record for most suggestions at this point in time. But a lot of you won't want to do that yet until we get to the objective setting point, so you don't have to go through that process now. We have started a process with officers as well, so we're going to come up with suggestions either through things that have been suggested by members, through grant funding we're aware of, through service pressures. So I'm asking all the service managers, what would you do with your service? What would you do with kind of no budget but just to change things around? What would you do with a fairly minimal budget? What's your hugely aspirational, life-changing thing that you'd like to do, if that's the thing that members bought into want to go for? So you will have a lot of ideas to look at, but also absolutely have opportunities to put your own input into that plan. And the idea will be we'll go through a process and we'll end up deciding the final plan in December alongside the budget setting process, so that once we get to precept setting in February, you'll have already decided the plan, and then you'll have a budget that enables you to deliver the plan. So some of the plan will be funded out precept, some of it will be aspirational, so it will be things that we'd like to do if we can get the funding from elsewhere. So.
Yes, a real opportunity to perhaps bring forward some of the things you might have put in your manifestos. John? Okay. Councillor Gurney, John Gurney.
I'd just like to say that last time we had this discussion 4 years ago, really for new members to know that we put in various things which we didn't have the money for at the time. For example, the Muga, that money was never, that was an aspiration more than anything else, and it was approved, even though when it was approved there was no money allocated to it. So if you're thinking of anything that you'd like to put forward, I'm not saying don't worry about where does the money come from, but put it forward. You know, it can be an aspiration that two years down the line, the money might be found. So as I say, you know, nothing's off the table as such. You know, I wouldn't say the sky's the limit, but anybody who's got ideas, just keep putting them forward. And it's not just physical things; it could be for events. It could, well, it's a physical thing, but it could be an event. Some sort of celebration that you think might be a centenary that's coming up, anything like that, and think, okay, what else can we do?
Yes, thank you. Yes, let your mind run riot, but not too much, not too so. Yes, it is obviously had to be linked up with monies and the budget and so on, and as we've heard, when it comes to some of the monies that we receive, when it comes down to the number of residents, additional residents we have, and the extra money we get from that, that's not expanding. In fact, it's probably we're getting less now. But on the other hand, we do have healthy budgets, and so ideas are very welcome. Okay, let's move on then to item 10, which is public engagement, and there are 4 matters that we have to decide upon, if we want to, one or two or all of them, but bearing in mind that there may be some cost involved, some organisation obviously involved. So, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So really some members have made comments to me about engagement and what else we could do, and I've also reflect on what good practice is elsewhere. So just some initial suggestions. There may be other things you'd want us to consider and possibly go back and come back to you with proper proposals on. So firstly, in terms of streaming council and committee meetings, at the moment we record meetings and put them online afterwards. My experience elsewhere in talking to others would be that if we streamed meetings, the benefit would be there'd be increased public interest because people are more likely to log on to a meeting. So when we had the planning meeting the other night, people are much more likely to log on to a live meeting than to click onto a video when it's uploaded within a day or two afterwards. You might find with an event like that, less people would need to attend public physically and would be able to attend online, and obviously it increases accessibility for people to feel like they're involved in something that's happening in the moment. There are obviously downsides to doing that, so it's possible that something inappropriate could happen. But then these are public meetings, so my argument would be we're holding public meetings anyway and the public can come and can see what's going on, so why not allow that to happen online? My personal observation would be that this isn't just this council, generally with councils, I think members always feel a little bit more inhibited might not be the right word, but certainly cautious about what you say and how you say it when you're being recorded anyway. And I know when we go into confidential session, there's almost a sense, and we turn off the video, there's almost a sense that people relax a bit more because there's not that pressure. So that pressure is with us just by that we're recording meetings anyway. So I don't think it adds additional pressure on us, but it would give us a bit more engagement. The second one is almost for information, but there's a communications officer to do some work at alerting residents to where particular items are tested coming up. I know we did try this a few years ago and it can get quite boring quite quickly. Oh, look, the council put another message out saying they're going to be discussing dog bins again in 2 weeks' time. But you never know what people are interested in. I think our tendency, officers, is often to underestimate the level of public interest in the small things we do in the town. Then the subject of monthly surgeries, and I know that this has been discussed in the past and some members have done it independently in the past. So the suggestion would be that as a council we facilitate monthly surgeries, possibly one ward each month, however you'd want to do it. I'm not saying officers would attend, but we would help with booking a venue and just making sure that everybody knew, so it was done in a fair and open, transparent way, and then we'd put out communications about that event happening. If that's something members would like us to try and as a council approach. And the other one is just a common sense thing, given the way we operate, that actually we'd add to every agenda something saying public question time in the agenda for each meeting, because the standing orders say the public can come to any meeting, and as we saw at planning the other week, we will welcome members of the public to come and ask questions relevant to that agenda. So it just makes sense to have a clear agenda item for each meeting for the public to ask questions relevant to that meeting agenda.
Thank you. Now, there are a couple of us that go back far enough to remember when a reporter actually sat at the end there from the Gazette, when it was the Dunstable Gazette proper, and report on council meetings, but that avenue seems to have dried up somewhat. Now, there may be other suggestions that people want to put forward, but can I suggest to approach this, to look at A, B, then C and D. Just look at it like that. I think that would be the sensible way. And then if anybody has any additional thoughts, then we can have them at the end. So are you happy with that? Rather than ferreting around and moving around between them. So beginning to stream council and committee meetings live. What are our colleagues' thoughts on that? Gurney, John.
Yeah, I would be in favour of this. When we first brought in the recorded meetings, we then had to tell people if they wanted to watch it or the recording. If they wanted to watch it live, they could go on Teams, Microsoft Teams, but then some people have a problem with that. and then recording it. Sometimes the recordings didn't go up for weeks, and so people would then lose interest in what was said. I think it would be easier if it was live, in order to get more interest from people. I personally have been putting things up to advertise meetings in advance. I put something up about this meeting that would discuss all these things in advance, to ask people to say to go on Teams or to come to the meeting. But it's still difficult to get people to show any interest in that. But I'd still be in favour of it.
Mr Jones.
I'd be in favour of streaming it live. I think it's only right that we do that, as long as we have the right equipment and the right technology to do that. We know that the technology and equipment that we're using at the moment isn't the right technology and equipment to do that with. We've had so many problems over the last few months. We need to get that right first. So I wouldn't want us to rush into doing it, but I do think it's the right opportunity and the right thing to do. It would be quite good as well, I think, in helping to bring on interested parties that are interested and keen to get more involved in the town, and it might actually garner more interest at the next election in 4 years' time around people wanting to be part of the community and being part of this proactive council, forward-thinking council. So for me, it's a yes on that one.
You, Councillor Alderman.
Thank you. I would definitely I would support everything that's already been said. I think these are all really good points. I would also say it's worth considering actually having some kind of facility for live comments being dropped in these social media live streams to actually be brought to the attention of councillors in the same way that people who are in the room would be able to speak. I don't know how that would be achieved. Paul's looking at me sceptically, but it's definitely worth considering from a democracy perspective and a transparency perspective.
Do you mean in the question time, the public question time period?
Yes, but also the live stream in general, like if there were... Yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay. So, I suppose one distinction to make is that a council meeting is a meeting that's held in public, not a public meeting. So the way we run the meeting generally is you have a public session at which the public can answer questions or make comments on items on the agenda. That then ends, and then councillors discuss those agenda items while the public watch. I think there may well be a way where certainly we would encourage people to address councillors through Teams or online. So I think that's a really good opportunity we should make available as officers sometimes to the public, if for accessibility reasons, whatever reason they want to be here. And if members of the public want to submit written questions, they can. And I guess if members of the public want to put comments up during that public session, we could feed those in. I'd be reluctant to encourage people to comment during a meeting, because at that point it's for councillors to have the discussion and make decisions while people watch. Experience from other places tells me it's quite helpful to turn off the comments on YouTube clips, because you don't want unhelpful members of the public piling on with their comments or views about town council stuff in an uneditable fashion.
That makes a lot of sense. I understand those points. I would still say it's worth investigating in some form, but we'll leave that there for now.
Councillor Crawley and then Councillor Reardon.
So I am going to agree with Councillor Alderman that I think that live commenting, I don't think we need necessarily to see it, but I think that whoever's monitoring our socials should be able to be aware of what's being said. Maybe not publicly available, but then there should be a chat kind of facility. If we're going to engage the younger residents, that is how they engage with their social medias. They watch a video on Instagram, they watch a video on YouTube, they watch Twitch, whichever, Discord, wherever they're chatting to people and following their favourite people. They are live talking. They're not necessarily being paid attention to by the people in that meeting, but they are able to make comments and see what each other think. And then at that point, they would be able to return. There'd be a consensus that they could see and come back to the next meeting, or write a question into their their councillors, if half a dozen of them agree. So I don't think it's something that should necessarily interrupt the meeting. So we shouldn't be staring at the screen and thinking, oh no, Joe Bloggs said this, but it should be definitely something that I think we should allow to happen in the background.
Councillor Reardon.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely all for engaging on social media and streaming live. And I just wanted to make the point that sometimes it's quite difficult to fit people into this room, especially the amount of people that would want to attend a meeting. So it's probably a good idea for us to do it that way, and then it's a bit more convenient. And I also agree with the comments about the commenting section of a live meeting. I think it's healthy for people to be able to debate with each other during the meeting, but not necessarily form part of our meeting. But I think, any kind of conversation and interest is a good thing for the council. And if somebody doesn't understand something, one of the other viewers may be able to explain it to them at the time and not interrupt our meeting. So I think it's a good thing. Yeah, I agree.
Councillor Atwell. And then Councillor
Thank you,
Kenson.
Chairman. Yeah, I'm fully supportive of the live meetings. I think it's definitely the way forward. I'd just ask, is there various options on this? I mean, is YouTube probably the best option, or is there other things that we're looking at?
I think we'll use YouTube. Yeah, it is the most straightforward option. Whether we use YouTube, technical support is nodding at me. Whether we use YouTube straight from Teams or from Zoom, we'll look into. And as has been said, we do need to look at the equipment we've got to see if it works for us in the best way. But yeah, YouTube.
Councillor Crawley. Well, as far as that... oh, sorry, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, all the comments are good. Obviously, this council is dynamic and looking to open out to the public, which, as you know, John and I did with your support, Mr. Chairman, and the Mayor's support very commonly at our meetings. But in terms of the video thing, yes, the equipment needs upgrading, but I wouldn't be afraid of the public. What we've found is the more open we are, and although it is a double-edged sword, in that they can sit there and criticise us, most of the time they will appreciate the openness, and as Phil said, certainly the younger ones will grasp that openness and maybe become involved in the political process, rather than just seeing it as a bunch of old fogies sitting in the room talking to entertain themselves. So I would take on the public comments, and I would take on a better performance for the public.
I think there are some younger fogies than me around. Councillor Alderman, I think you wanted to come back. Yep.
I would echo Councillor Kenson Gurney's points, but I would also point out that Facebook is a good one to consider, given our very healthy 10,700 or so people that actually already are liking and engaging there for the live streaming platform. I will be quiet now.
Okay, well, we've sort of discussed, I think, part A, and we've taken it a little bit further than I think was initially envisaged, but nonetheless in a positive way. I think what we have to remember is what Town Clerk said. It's a meeting in public, not a public meeting, and I don't think there should be anything that should distract members from their meeting. That's the thing. One can have chats on the side, like we do in Zoom and Teams and so on, but when you have members sort of looking at either screen or their phone, are they really paying attention to what's going on at this moment? That's the thing. Councillors need to have their full attention on the business in hand. So I think with that caveat, I think we're probably agreeing that we should come to stream meetings when technology is available, and we'll look into how we might be able to engage more with the public during those meetings. Okay, well we have in fact sort of touched on D as well, haven't we? Include a public question time section in the agenda. So perhaps we'll move on to that straight away. Anyone wish to make any comments on that, or is that sort of pretty well taken as is? Councillor John Gurney.
The Town Clerk and Chief Executive mentioned that the public question time would be relevant to the agenda of the committee. What about for full council meetings? Would that be any questions opportunity?
So standing orders say that public questions for full council should be relevant to the agenda, and that's the council's current practice. Not doing that is quite tricky. You could open yourself up to people talking about irrelevant things at great length, and probably things that are relevant to another council rather than this council, which is where it gets particularly tricky. If members of the public were keen to talk about an issue that was relevant to the council, there are certainly mechanisms by which I would talk to the mayor or the chairman and say, actually, we've got interest in this, how can we engage? So I think we would engage nonetheless, but it might be safer to keep things as they are for now.
I'm not afraid of the public, as you know. I'm keen on the public. And I would say if we add the caveat at the chairman's discretion, I'd be completely happy, because as you know, things can occasionally happen in the town that cause a lot of feeling, and it's important to get the public's views out, let them express themselves, because that's the quickest way to diffuse them. And if we allow that something comes up and it's obvious that you should be talking about it but it's not on the agenda, but the public are there raising it, that the chairman is able to say, yes, you're right, we should take this important point on board, then I think we've got an almost perfect solution, because we do shut out those rowdy nonsense questions.
And then, oh,
Thanks, Chairman. The other thing to think about, of course, is that we're very clear that members can only discuss what's on the agenda. So you would run the risk where a member of the public would come and raise the new item, which may be of significant public interest, but then members couldn't actually respond or say anything about it. So you could put yourself in a really difficult position whereby a member of the public said, you must do something about the fishing problem on the lake. And actually I was then saying to members, you're not going to talk about this. And then that becomes tricky.
But we could acknowledge the public concern and say we're taking it on board and we'll discuss it at the earliest opportunity, which again has done the job of taking on board the public, clearly taking on board what the public want us to be discussing. You could just say, I've taken that on board and I'll get the lazy swines to discuss it at the earliest opportunity.
Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Chair. I think with regards to a public question time, trying to work in Central Bedfordshire, I've found this issue, as in on Central Bedfordshire Council, I found this issue to be a significant barrier to being heard. When you have an issue and you want to bring it to the council and then finding out that you cannot speak because that particular item isn't on the agenda, it's very frustrating, and it does present a barrier to anyone who wants to just essentially be heard. I think it is doable that you could have questions from the public that are not items on the agenda, and that all that would have to happen is if that particular item, if you don't have an answer for that, you can just promise to provide an answer within a certain time frame. So it might be that you already have an answer to that question, and you can say, well, actually that's a Central Bedfordshire Council problem, that's not Town Council. Or you can say, well, the department head for that particular question isn't here today, but they will get an answer to you as soon as possible. You know, there's ways around it that I don't believe it would be a particular issue to have questions on any subject.
So obviously that suggestion wasn't on the agenda for the meeting. What members, the way to go forward with that as a suggestion might be to consider immediately the thing about public question time, but you could then refer up to full council. So papers to full council go out Friday, and actually that would be amending standing orders. There's a line in standing orders that says public questions have to relate to items on the agenda. So you could put a recommendation to full council to amend that bit of standing orders to enable all questions, which would give me time just to double check anything I haven't thought of off the top of my head, and I could put any advice into that. I'm not opposed to it in principle at all, but as long as members understand the context.
The other way of doing it is for members of the public to give notice about a question they want to ask. I mean, that's putting a sort of barrier in a way, maybe. But on the other hand, we are looking at in the agenda for each committee meeting. So if we knew what the question was, we could refer it to the correct committee. Councillor John Gurney, and then. Oh, sorry. You're going to defer to Councillor Jones. Sorry, yes, Councillor Jones, who did one on my list.
I was just going to say, we've only got 15 minutes for public question time. We're at a Grounds and Environmental Services Committee. How are we going to understand if we've got 20 people online all wanting to ask a question? 20 people are not going to ask a question in 15 minutes. How are you going to understand that what those 20 people are linked to Grounds and Environmental Services unless you ask in advance what their questions are? It's going to be so difficult to manage. We really do need to think this through. I'm not opposed to it at all, but we don't rush it. Let's think it through, please.
Right, I've got John Gurney, Councillor, then Councillor Brennan, Councillor Crawley, and is it you as well? Yeah. Oh, that's 5 then. Councillor Brennan Hassett and Councillor Kasarski. Right, Councillor Gurney, come back, please. And then I think we'll draw a line after those.
In central beds, they have a general question time before full council meetings available. Members of the public can put the question in writing beforehand, and if they do that, they will know they will get an answer from the appropriate portfolio holder. If they don't do that, they may simply get the answer that there will be an answer sent to them,
a written
answer at a later time. So if that rule was clearly known, which is be unlikely, we could state that, but if people turn up and expect a full answer to a question that they're just posing at that time, it may be difficult for an officer to give. And so we'd have to try to make it as clear as possible that if people put forward written questions, A, they would have preference in the timing that is allowed, and secondly, they would get an answer on the time.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Brennan, I think it's you, and then Councillor Crawley.
Thank you, Chair. You could limit the amount of questions, so you could say first 4 questions, or I believe Central Bedfordshire has a similar thing where I believe it's like 4 questions per council meeting, I believe.
Well, if it's a 15-minute time, then when time's out,
job's done.
Fine.
I really think we are pushing aside our own responsibilities here as ward members, as councillors. We should be engaging with our residents, and if they have something to say, we can bring it to the officers and raise it and bring it to the meetings on their behalf and speak about it at that point we'd be able to speak about it in depth and have it on the agenda. I think just bringing in a random topic is not going to give the residents enough kind of time to get a full answer for what they're going to get. They're going to get a little soundbite. We're going to give a soundbite answer potentially back, or say we'll get back to you, and that's as annoying as when I occasionally, not quite often, have to reply to a resident and say, "I'll get back to you. I'll ask. I don't know. I'll get back to you." It's just going to put people off asking in the future. If they come to us first, we go to the officers and say, this is what a resident wants to bring to the meeting, then we can say that's being discussed at this date, at length, with everybody, with full understanding of this question is coming. I think that's much more sensible than random questions being thrown up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, I understand Paul's situation, and obviously the idea of the public meetings or the committee meetings we hold should be very specific questions for those meetings. It seems to be going the way that we should have a separate meeting where, well, pardon the expression, but free for all, but people can come online and just ask the council's meetings. But obviously that's a different item for people. Well, it's not really listed here. It sort of really falls under the surgeries type thing, but we could all be here taking video questions or advised questions for the general public. So maybe twice a year, just to say, we'll be here and you can raise anything you like, but it wouldn't be connected with a committee. It'd be a general thing. And as Phil says, yeah, a lot of the times it'd be a case of, well, we'll take that on board, refer it and come back to you.
Yep, Town Clerk.
So I wonder whether members would be happy for me then to provide something to full council to discuss that issue, so I could provide a recommendation of wording which I could reflect on, which would be something along the lines of members of the public may make representations, answer questions and give evidence at a meeting which they're entitled to attend in respect of the business on the agenda or at the discretion of the meeting chair where there is an urgent item relevant to the town. That may also be considered, something like that. So it would be a kind of, it wouldn't be a total free-for-all, but it would be, I think it was just at the discretion of the chair. The other comment I should make, members should be aware, or to remind members, that the standing orders also say questions and representations from the public at all meetings of the council or its committees should be received by the town clerk and chief executive in writing and minimum of 3 days prior to the date of the meeting. So at the moment, you don't get to speak at a meeting unless you've written to me 3 days beforehand. So I'm just testing, is that something members are comfortable with, or is that another thing you would want to be reviewed by full council when we're doing the other one?
I think what we've sort of come to is that we're agreeing there should be something along the lines of public question time, but it has to be properly managed. Managed in such a way where we're not going to be diverted from the agenda that is before us, but in a way that accommodates members of the public and directing them to the correct committee. So that if someone receives something, if the town clerk receives a question in writing, then he can refer right back to them, email back, whatever, giving the date of the relevant committee. I'll take the two who are eagerly wanting to come back to that, Kenson Gurney and then Councillor Brennan.
Well, I'm just saying the whole principle of what we're trying to do is to make it more open to the public. I think whatever the town clerk comes up with that takes our business closer to the public is going to be very probably very acceptable to me. I can't speak for the rest of the committee, but I think that's what we're looking to do, make us closer to the public, make the public closer to us.
So Brennan.
All I wanted to say, Chair, was that the 3 days leeway for questions to council is the current system, obviously, and the majority of public participation, I'll quote the minutes, has been nil. So if we're looking to increase that, then we need to change the current systems.
Well, I'm sure the town clerk has absorbed the thoughts of the meeting and needs to have another look at that, as I say, in a way that it's properly managed, but as you say, Councillor Gurney, bringing us closer to the public and engaging them in a constructive way. Right, B was the Communications Office to provide social media messages alerting residents when items of particular interest to be discussed at council meetings.
Absolutely.
That sounds sensible. Does anyone want to say anything about it? Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I did have a point about that. So with regards to having social media messages alerting residents, would that be by means of a private message from the council page? No, as a post? Okay, great. As part of that, I think that's a great idea. But as part of that, I wonder if on our Facebook page we could have a sign-up button so that people can sign up to receive regular updates, and maybe the talk of the town could form part of that.
I don't know whether it's technically possible to do that on Facebook. I'll have a conversation with Rachel, but we are investigating. This is one of those things which I put on Rachel's desk. So at some point we want to do some kind of monthly town council newsletter. So we're doing the staff newsletter, we're doing the council newsletter, and we're looking to turn that into a public newsletter as well, which would be a similar kind of thing. And then we would have a click on the website to sign up for the council newsletter and any other council updates. So, and that way we could do it through the bit of technology that does newsletters online that's gone out my head. MailChimp, thank you very much, in a managed, controlled way. So I think that we know we can do that. I'm not sure if we can do the Facebook thing, but we'll investigate.
Yeah, it definitely can be done. And I think what you just proposed kind of solves what I'm asking. So thank you. And maybe there could be a link on the Facebook page that took you to that sign up button on another site. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's done that one quickly. The last one, all members to be supported to hold and attend monthly surgeries. Councillor Kent.
I would tend not to call them surgeries. They have a bad reputation with the public, and I would not see us going as surgeons operating on the public's needs. I would call them what we did for the last 4 years, an open listening exercise where we go and hear what the public think. I think 10 a year is ample, one in each ward and then one in each ward, with the summer break separating the 2 5s. We now have sufficient CBC councillors to expect at least one CBC councillor to attend those meetings. And if the other CBC councillors aren't capable of doing so, I will do so, because many of the questions posed to town councillors over the last 4 years, and I've had great support from yourself and Councillor Jones, and they've gone very, very well generally, although perhaps not that many people came. But my feeling is people will come if they believe they're going to be heard, not talked to and have excuses put at them. So I would move away from surgeries, move to open listening experiences where we gain the knowledge of the public as they perceive it. I think that's an important emphasis. But I'm all for them, and as a CBC councillor, I will volunteer to attend if other CBC councillors can't, but I think we'll always get one there, and then even though we may get this question answered, we'll get the question listened to, and that's an important thing from a public point of view.
Thank you. This was something that I raised, I think, in the last council, that whilst John Kenson, you were doing your regular conversations with the residents and you were paying for those out of your own pockets, etc. For me, it was the importance of how can we do this as a council as a whole, because we all represent the town. Yes, we represent our wards, but actually we represent the town. So I'm quite keen to explore how we do this as a town council. Yes, I understand that a lot of the questions that get raised are linked to Central Bedfordshire Council, but you also have to be aware that and remember that there are 3 other Central Bedfordshire councillors that are not town councillors that need to have opportunity, and you as Central Bedfordshire councillors, I understand, have the right to hold surgeries that Central Bedfordshire Council will pay for. So we just need to be conscious of that. We shouldn't be using town council resources to deliver Central Bedfordshire messages, in my opinion. So I think I'm all up for it, happy to work on it, happy for them to be, I don't know whether we need them monthly, if I'm honest, bi-monthly. It's a big commitment to ask volunteers around the table that are working full time to then come out on a Saturday once a month. However much we all do lots of things, when you've got all the events programmed in the summer season as well, to ask us then to find another Saturday to come out from our families and our responsibilities, then we need to have a look at that. You know, we are going to need to look at where we hold them as well, because not all wards have a facility within the ward. Dunstable West does not have a facility within the ward. We don't have a play, you know, a venue at all. We don't have anywhere unless we have it in an open field in Mentmore, or we have it, you know, or somewhere. You know, we don't have that facility, so we have to think it through. But I'm all up for it. But please, this is a town council thing, not a central beds.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's a great idea, no matter what we call it. I think it's really good to engage with the community. Personally, as a resident, I like to be able to speak to the councillors as well, so I can see the value in it. I wonder if we could also look at doing something online, because there are people that can't physically get out. There are also people that can't do an online Teams meeting, but maybe we could look at the possibility of holding some of these surgeries online as well, for ease and convenience of people that have other commitments at home. And with regards to it being monthly, I kind of agree that that might be a bit much for all of us to commit to, but I would suggest that we have a monthly surgery, but that it's rotated in its location perhaps, and also we rotate who attends. So maybe every 2-3 months we each attend one. Maybe that's the way forward. Because, you know, if you've got all 14 of us, 18 of us. If you've got all 18 of us, we might outnumber the residents. I know we might have them in different wards, but yeah, those are my thoughts. And then I had another point and it's just gone out of my head, so I'll leave it there.
If you remember it, I'll bring you back. Councillor John Gurney, then Councillor Alden.
I agree with the idea that they are open public meetings rather than surgeries. I don't see any reason why they should be held on a Saturday. The meetings we held were various weekday evenings. I do think there's an opportunity to possibly hold them during the daytime, because there are several councillors who don't work full-time or are available during the daytime. We may be able to do that with a daytime meeting in the North Ward or the South Ward, for example. I also think it would be a good idea to try and get at least one representative of each group on a panel as such, to at least have that invitation. You don't really want to have a panel of 18 people, or councillors. But if there was one of at least each group, I think it would be a fair representation as well. Okay.
Councillor Alderman.
Thank you, Chair. I am in agreement. I don't really mind if it's called surgeries or anything of that variety. Something that's publicly recognisable is definitely important, and I would have thought surgery would be a well-recognised term in terms of the fact that MPs have surgeries, but again, I'm open-minded on that. I would definitely agree with the idea that there be ideally 2 surgeries a year for each ward, and therefore it would be hoped for that the individual whose ward they represent would turn up for their own ward surgery / public meeting, but all councillors would be invited. I suspect some of a variant of what John Gurney proposes would happen, where each group would probably send someone. That sounds positive to me. Other than that, I'd like to just say I'm supportive. I think it's a really good idea.
I was just going to say, I'm not dead against it at all. So this was, you know, one of the things that I wanted to do, and I don't want that coming across. But I'm just conscious that we as a town council, we want to be with our public, we want to be mixed. So even if we have them in the wards, I'd still be encouraging North Ward to come into West Ward's surgery to come and talk to us and to tell us what their issues are, just because we're having them in particular wards, I wouldn't want them to say that you can't come if you don't, you know, you're not part of East Ward, you're not coming. No, this is about open and fairness and being available for our people across the town. So I think, you know, absolutely somebody from each, you know, group, or we have 3 or 4 of us, and then we rotate the chairman of those as well. So whoever's going, you nominate somebody to chair that meeting so that you've got that record. But I think if we are going to do it through the town council, it should be a branded exercise, it should be measured, and we should have some kind of standardisation of what we're sort of like the agenda and the way that we take things forward. Shouldn't just be an ad hoc conversation that arises. I know, like Kenson, you've always chaired your meetings, haven't you? And you've got some kind of, you're welcome, you've got your pattern, and that's what we would all need to develop, so that it was a consistent approach. So for whoever was leading it, whether it be an experienced councillor or not an experienced councillor, they don't feel overwhelmed by the experience. I think we just need to be conscious of that as well.
Councillor Jones, Councillor Hollick, you've come to almost all of our meetings over the last 4 years. Your support has been tremendously useful and appreciated. It's exactly that, rotating it round, bringing through new chairmen from different groups and different wards, expanding ourselves as well as expanding the public. So I totally agree with everything you've said, Madam Mayor.
How would it be if we, there's some real practicalities to work through. How would it be if we worked with the ward members for each ward to say, it's your turn this month in your ward, can you tell us when would work for you, where would work for you, and then you set that for your ward, and then all members are invited, so it's not an exclusive thing, it's absolutely open to everyone, and that way, but you know your ward the best, and actually you know your availability the best as well, and the priority for each ward should be those members. So if we work with ward members for each ward to agree where and when, then set up the programme on that basis and invite members in, and we'll work with those who've done it before to look at what a standard agenda might be like. We'll put together a piece of comms around 5 events are coming up, here's where they're going to be in the next 5 months, come along at this time and this is what will happen, and experiment with that, and we'll give you all a feedback form as well that you can give to us.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think Paul's going along the right lines there, and John was saying earlier that it doesn't need to be a Saturday. If the best for the public, again, is to try and spread it out during the week. If people are available during the day rather than the evenings, that would be helpful as well. But as Paul was saying, it's then discussing with each representative what they can do when it's best for them. And as John has said earlier as well, you know, as long as we can then get representatives from each group as well, and that's and as Liz was saying, that it should be available for everyone from Dunstable. So it's telling the public, you know, even though this is being held in South Ward, you know, if you're from the North Ward, please come and sort of share your views about the town as a whole.
Atwell.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I'm very supportive of these meetings, having held them ourselves. It's very good, and it's a great way of discussing things with our members of the public. It's very important, and going on what we've said before about questions and being incorporated into general council meetings, I think it'll alleviate a lot of the pressure off of that. So this is all interlinked. And I think we need to view it as a bigger picture rather than just single things, really. I know we listed them down there, but they are all interlinked. And if we can get this communication flow or cascade going in the actual wards at this sort of level, then you're going to take away a lot of that from the main council meetings, because people often just want to talk about these things and just get them off their chest. Even if, from my experience of having held these, even if you can't do things about those particular problems that people want to do, they just want to be told that, or to have an answer, yes we can do it, we can look into it, no we can't do it because A, B and C, and they're quite happy with that. It's just if they don't know about what's going on and that's left for too much time, obviously rumour mills start and all sorts of different things. So we can kill a lot of that just by having much more outward communication. So these are an excellent way forward. But I take on board all the points that you said, Paul, as well.
Thank you. Councillor Jones, and then I will allow Councillor Riordan to come in, but that must be the last one, I think.
I've just said to Greg briefly, West doesn't have a venue. We don't have a church hall. We don't have anything in our ward. However, what we do have in Central is what we do. Go on.
Sorry, I'll just correct you there because I have got I've already had meetings in our ward and I've got a venue that we can
Right.
hire.
Okay, let
So,
me just finish.
Yes.
We do have a venue in the centre of town that is on the border of both Central and West. That is our own venue that we are exploring better ways of using the facility outside of Splash Park times. There is a venue there that would probably accommodate what we need for some of our open meetings, potentially at the cafe.
And drinks are available at a very good rate.
And lastly, Councillor Riordan.
Thank you. I remembered what I wanted to say. I think having an aligned and organised approach to surgeries, whatever we want to call them, is a really good idea, to have like a joined up approach. I see us as 18, couldn't count earlier, 18 councillors. You know, we're here as trusted servants to serve the public. That's what we're here for. That's what we're elected to do. So I don't see it as a political mission. We've all got, our primary purpose is to serve the local people. So I think that's the approach that we should really take and be joined up together to provide that to them.
Okay, thank you. A very useful debate and one which perhaps we should have had some while ago, but we've had it now and we've come to certain conclusions. But on this particular one, holding surgeries, some way we want to ensure as well as we can that people are going to come with town matters. And as I say, it is a town surgery, not a central bed surgery, which is funded elsewhere. We can, obviously, if we're town councillors, refer matters to our ward central beds members. That can be done. When I was on central beds, we used to have surgeries, and we were lucky if anyone turned up, quite frankly. I held them next door in the station there, held them in Furness Avenue, at the old people's, there's a hall there, and in other places as well. And it was about an hour and a half of just chatting to fellow colleagues. But that doesn't mean to say we shouldn't be doing it, because we should. And maybe, if it works, people will hear about it and they will come. But as with the other three matters, there's a little bit more thought needs to go into it, and we can, I don't know, bring it back. But we want to make a decision as to how we go about it, certainly no later than the September round of meetings, I'd have thought. Or do you want to do it earlier?
Well, I'm not sure we can get anything. I mean, we could put something to full council, but my instinct would be, once the Democratic Services Manager takes up her post, we'd be able to arrange something for September. And it's a little bit of a trial and error thing. So I think just based on your decision, we'll put something together. We'll ping it around. If you've got things you want to change, or ping it around a few of you, and then let's try something in September and see what happens.
I was going to say, in principle, we've all agreed to all four things. There's just some work behind the scenes that needs to be done to now make it happen. So I think we just say to Paul, as the officers, get on with it based on our decisions. You know how our views are. You know what our thoughts are. We've collectively said yes. Nobody around the table has said no. So, you know, we're all up for it. Let's just make it happen now. I think waiting till September, we've lost half a year. We don't want to wait till September if we can help it. You know, we will have wasted nearly, you know, a good 4 months of a new council. So let's move it forward if we can.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Atwood.
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to mentioned there, because we've said about the talk of the town. But if we've got an agreement on this, it might be a good idea, seeing it's pertinent before the print run, to try and get something put in, or is it too late?
Exactly the wrong timing. So
Is it?
the absolutely final version has just been signed off, and the next version
Right.
won't be out until November.
Okay.
So we'll do stuff on social media and the notice boards this time, and then for November, we'll be able to put in what the programme is for the next series of them.
Yeah, because
Once we've finessed it and it's perfect, we'll put it in the newsletter for next
yeah,
time.
even if it's not actually listing the date, it's just to put out there, you know, that we've got the idea and we've agreed the idea, and so it's something they can look forward to. That'd be good. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll progress it as best we can, as quickly as we can, in a well-managed way. Thank you. Right, item 11 is represented on outside organisations. I appreciate that not everyone will have had meetings, but this is the opportunity to come back and let us know where you are as regards these outside organisations. So, Councillor Atwell, Citizens Advice Management Committee, has there been a meeting?
I've been informed that there is an AGM in July that's going to be going ahead. I wasn't sure who to reach out to, so Paul's been helping me with that. We've actually now got the contact, so I've been in contact with them to see if I can actually have a meeting with them before that time, which would be good, just to sort of meet up with people and show a general interest to meet them. Yeah, we have got the AGM in July as well. So that obviously be a bit more known details once I've had time to have a meeting with them and introduce myself.
Yeah, okay. Dunstable International Town Twinning Association.
Chairman, there was a meeting of DETA a couple of weeks ago, which I wasn't able to attend, but it was a specific meeting that was centralised around what they were proposing was a visit to ports later on in the year. But I understand from the chairman of DETA that an official visit isn't going ahead. Some members may choose to still visit, but there is no official visit going ahead. And I'm not sure actually of the longevity of DETA going forward. It's something I want to pick up with the chairman when I next speak to him with regards to that, but there's been nothing else.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there were certain difficulties in travel. That was a major reason, and a few people that were going are, shall we say, older than me, and it was a matter of changing trains and all sorts of things, which it was just felt that it was getting a little bit more complicated than it need be. But we'll come back next report and see what's happened in the interim. Hospice at Home Management Committee, Councillor Jones.
Yep, Hospice at Home held a very successful charity evening last Tuesday evening at Coconut Garden, and they're continuing to support the patients that they've got at the moment, their clients. They were also at the motor rally. They were also at the motor rally on Saturday and had an opportunity to speak to thousands of people as they were wandering by, and I know they did extremely well with some plant sales as well that one of the volunteers had grown from seed for them. So all round, they've got their AGM early July, and no changes are really expected at this stage.
Thank you. Ashton Almshouses Charity, Councillor Reardon, Councillor Alderman.
Thank you, Chair. There is a meeting set for later this month, which I'm really excited about, but unfortunately I'm going to be on holiday, so I'm hoping Councillor
You're
Alderman
not that excited then.
can attend. It wasn't able to be changed, so I've been promised that I will get a welcome on another date. So, yes.
I can attend that, yes. Just to say.
Ashton Schools Foundation, it's myself and Councillor Alderman again. We last met on Wednesday the 15th of March, which was prior to the last full council meeting where I gave a report there. Suffice to say for new members since then, if you'll remember that there used to be a middle school next door, Ashton Middle School. That school was closed. It was squeezed out by the lower and the upper schools that became primary and secondary schools. but a considerable amount of money was raised from the sale of that property to developers, and that money has been channelled into both Manshead and Ashton Primary School, being Church of England schools, as indeed was the Ashton Schools Foundation. So they have benefited considerably from money, and in fact, we've been told the schools have been quite changed as a result of the amount of work that they've been able to do with the money. Cheers Foundations, Councillor Brennan, Councillor Kenson Gurney.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. My brother actually attended Choose Foundation for me, so I'm going to ask him to tell you how he got on.
Councillor John Gurney.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm attending also on behalf of Central Beds Council. Yes, the meeting was held. There was a lot of discussions. They are fulfilling their commitment to providing school uniform for the needy, and have allocated a budget, a considerable amount, which I can't go into. They've also let out several of their rooms for people to use as offices, and they've refurbished a room or a flat, and they've been doing quite a lot of work. They now have a subcommittee which oversees all the work, and that reports to the main committee. And the next meeting, I'm hoping my brother and Councillor Brennan will be able to attend, will be in December.
Okay. Not sure that one should be substituting, but never mind. As long as there's a representative there, I think it's good. Thank you for that. Pawsland Charity. Do you want to do that?
Can do. So obviously, Pawsland only meets twice a year. We meet about February time to decide how much money we're going to give to those that come to collect it on Maundy Thursday. Then we meet on Maundy Thursday to give the money out. So there's nothing since we sat here on Maundy Thursday and handed out money to around 50 odd people this year.
Yeah.
So yeah.
About £75.
Yeah, it was £70 each this year they got.
Lockington Charity and Marsh Charity, Councillors Kenson Gurney. Did John Gurney attend this one?
So Lockington Charity and Marsh Charity, they tend to meet a couple of times a year, 2-3 times a year. The inspections are going ahead at the ladies' lodges in Church Street at the moment. Their annual or half-yearly inspections are going ahead. And then they'll have their meeting. They're also looking at a number of ways to improve the buildings at the Ladies' Lodge at the moment as well. But nothing more to add.
You are both on it. If
I
you'd like
know.
to add something.
I was there, and yeah, they did the inspections and discussed the ongoing situation with Ladies' Lodge, which they've decided to engage professionals to assess the situation with Ladies' Lodge. They are somewhat off current building regulations, and they are old like our buildings, and therefore there would be a considerable amount of money, they think, involved in upgrading them to health and safety standards for the current mode. So there are upcoming things that both charities have to look at. It's specifically one charity in that case, but other than that, inspections were done. There are some issues which are being sorted out. I'm researching with Central Bedfordshire Council if some care is available for one of the residents and some help with some decluttering that needs doing. So, but it was good.
Okay, I attended the executive meeting at First Dunstable headquarters on Wednesday, 31st of May. Key points on the agenda. Key issue was the lack of any scouting movement in Downside. The hurdle was to overcome a finding experienced leaders to start a new Beavers group initially. The second hurdle would be finding appropriate premises. Networking and advertising will be used to find new leaders. For the 9th Dunstable St Augustine Scout Group, this will be formally closed and any monies ring-fenced pending a new group being formed. That's the current group that was in the area. The accounts reflected that the council held sufficient funds in their accounts to manage any unforeseen issues. They did query, like ourselves, whether there was too much or too little in the reserves, but they're happy with what they've got. The District Commissioner notified the committee he'll be retiring this year, so they're going to have to find someone else to replace him. The committee is tasked with drafting a district safety policy, which will then be distributed to each group. I think they're going to find that's quite a challenge for them. And then finally, the attendees of the Mayor's events greatly appreciate the invitations, and they enjoyed each of the functions.
So great support.
Fine, thank you very much indeed. Well, that brings us to the end of the agenda. Thank you very much indeed for your participation. I think there have been some good debates tonight, and may that continue. So thank you very much indeed, and safe journey home to you all.